Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Turning Point event in March. And I was just taking stock, and it's amazing because we've been at this now for a year. The first event we started in this vein, Global Cleansing, was on the 28th of March, which is literally 2 days' time. And I can't believe it. I can't believe what's happened. I can't believe the amount of water that's gone under the bridge, let's say, and the amount of transformation and raised consciousness that I'm experiencing, the people that I'm associated with in terms of clients or friends, associates, relationships, etc. It's been phenomenal. And I guess it all depends on your interpretation, your perception, which we're going to speak about, and we're going to be discussing also illusion versus delusion. And I'm so honored to have Errol with us today. I'm going to call him now, our esteemed astrologer who really does bring things together for us and help us see, the wood for the trees, because this is what this is all about, physical, neurological, emotional, and spiritual. And we need to always be working in that holistic realm in an integrative and quantum space, because we are quantum beings, we are electromagnetic beings, and we do come from that morphogenic field. So by now, I'm sure you've all Googled morphogenic field. You've all watched and read a bit of Rupert Sheldrake. The other one is Fidget Capra, and he's written a lot about quantum systems, integratedness, interrelatedness. Rudolf Steiner has talked a lot about our interconnection with the soil, the plants, the animals, ourselves, and the cosmos. Professor Desiree Dubonnet has spoken and in many instances rewritten the textbooks on quantum theory, electromagnetism, our body electric, chemical, alchemy, biology, and the whole quantum entwinement and entanglement, if you like. So we've got an unbelievable amount of information already at our fingertips. And, it's just really an honor to have all of you here. And Dr. Reggie, our resident holistic biological dentist, and Sister Dipty Reggie, who is our resident guide. I think I like to say I spiritualize matter, and she takes matter back to the spiritual. So the two of us interchange very, very beautifully there. And so we're going to have some more of her too. And then we're going to have also Dr. Reggie, who's going to be speaking also about healing and in relation to our intuition, our faith, and how that all happens from an astrological soul perspective in the physical body, from a pain and a discomfort point of view, and how acting in the moment, in time and space, is so relevant and so real right now, and how where things need to happen, the universe creates space. So we've got a beautiful lineup. If you don't mind, I'm going to just quickly call Errol, who's waiting in the wings with bated breath, as he always does and always is, and to belt it out to us and give us such informative information. So I'm calling him through, and we're going to have an interactive session. So lots of questions from you and exploration, and as we expand our consciousness.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, Errol, and how are you?
Good, darling. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Such an honor and a privilege to have you always coming in and sharing with us on such a magnificent space that you occupy, and your ability to teach and train us and educate us and to help us see the wood for the trees. That's what I said a little bit earlier. We're really in a situation now where, it's topsy-turvy, ups and downs, and I think you've played a major role in in anchoring our space and making sure we're riding the crest of that wave. And so really, you know, enormous thanks in advance to you and Imogen for anchoring everything, our turning point events. I was just saying to everyone, Errol, on the 28th, which is 2 days' time, it marks our anniversary of these turning point global cleansing events. A whole year has gone past, and it's been phenomenal. So I don't want to waste precious time. I see most of the people have already come in and are sitting with us, which is fantastic. And people from all over the world. And that always makes it a one world place. So Errol, over to you. What we're going to be really focusing, what you suggested to me when we were talking earlier, is on the official ending of the Piscean age from an astrological point of view, which I think you said was last Friday, and you'll embellish upon that and what that really means right now. And also we're entered into an Aries Sun Moon phase, which would be useful and very informative. And then I think, thirdly, Errol, if we could just touch on the fact of, I think a lot of people know what's going on. A lot of people have woken up. A lot haven't, but a lot of us have. And we're sort of questioning, but why still lockdowns and why still happening, even though we've got raised consciousness and the world knows? Why are we still stuck in that stereotype of three-dimensional, you know, shift and stuff? If we could maybe just embellish a little bit upon that and work on direction, that would be super.
Right, yeah, because I'll integrate all those things you just talked about, because in any case they are integrated.
Correct.
You know, they're all interconnected. Yeah, I mean, I thought that, you know, one of the best ways to come into this is that, you know, at the moment, Jewish people are in the process of celebrating what they call Pesach, which means the Passover. And this is like a celebration, although I wouldn't know if that's the right word, of what took place 4,000 years ago, when the age of Taurus, which was basically focused in various countries, but also Egypt, was coming to a close, like the age of Pisces is coming to a close now, and the age of Aries was about to begin, just the way the age of Aquarius is about to begin. And the whole story of Moses and you know, the Hebrews leaving Egypt and then going into the desert 40 years until finally they move into the physical land of Palestine, becoming Israel. It's all about that swap over from the age of Taurus to the age of Aries. Aries, of course, the symbol is the ram, and the ram's horn is what they blow in Jewish synagogues. You know, every single time you go there. I was brought up a Jew, so I know about that. But of course, a lot of the stories based upon that are myths and symbols. They're not literal. But many Jews, unfortunately, take it as literal because they see things literally, not symbolically.
Right.
You know, just for example, the Hebrews were not slaves in Egypt because slavery was banned in Egypt. The law of Ma'at, who was the goddess of justice, banned all slavery. So all workers in ancient Egypt were paid in one way or another, often through partial exchange, and so on. There was no such thing as slaves. Second of all, the Hebrews didn't build the pyramids, which of course every Egyptologist, including Israeli Egyptologists, would know about, since the Great Pyramid of Giza was built 12,000 years ago, and not 2 or 3, not 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, and it was constructed of 50 to 100-ton blocks that were put in so perfectly that you can't put a piece of paper in between them.
Yeah.
And it's a massive construct which they couldn't even build today. Without technology, we couldn't build the Great Pyramid today. So, it's all myths. They weren't slaves. They didn't build the Great Pyramid. They didn't build the pyramids, so to speak. It wasn't that the Egyptians were specifically bad or evil, and the Hebrews were good and lovely. which is, of course, all propaganda myths. It was just the swap over of ages, and one of the sectors of humanity, there were many sectors, that was moving from the age of Taurus to the age of Aries, happened to be the Hebrew tribe. They were a tribe, of course. And other tribes were doing this all around the planet, obviously, but the focus in the Western system, of course, was on the Hebrews moving out of Taurus into the age of Aries. And then you get the story, that Moses goes up Mount Sinai, which wasn't a physical mountain, but was him going into a state of meditation and going to these higher centers. And then getting, the 10 Commandments, basically. And he comes down out of meditation and to reveal the 10 Commandments to the Hebrews. And they all worshipping the golden calf, which, of course, is a symbol of Taurus. And a symbol of materialism, obviously. And Moses, of course, throws the tablets on the floor and destroys them because he gets pretty furious. Acting in a typical Aries way. I mean, when Aries people get angry, that's what they tend to do, destroy things. Anyone who's an Aries who's listening probably knows about that. And so basically what's happening is the Hebrews are worshipping the golden bull, which means they are going back into the age of Taurus instead of focusing themselves in the age of Aries.
Right.
So then, we get that type of process, and then 2,000 years carries on, and the age of now Aries now shifts into the age of Pisces.
Yeah.
And in that shift, we have Jesus, who comes in as the avatar, as always an initiate who comes in to act as the archetype for the age in question. Jesus comes in. He's Jewish, of course. His disciples are Jewish, and so on. And he brings through a new teaching, much more upgraded, much more advanced than Moses and the Jewish teaching, which is the teaching of the age of Pisces, very different to Aries. Aries is a very masculine sign. Pisces is a very feminine sign. Pisces is peace, love, forgiveness, understanding, and Aries, revenge, anger, war, violence, and all the rest of it. Aggression, and so on. So you get this big difference between a masculine age and a feminine age. And of course, the thing goes that the Jews rejected Jesus and were responsible for his crucifixion, which is not necessarily true. The Pharisees, who were the Jewish religious authority, and the people who followed them, who you can call conservative Jews if you want to, or traditional Jews, they rejected Jesus because they did not know about the astrological ages. They didn't know that an astrological age was changing, just the same way as the Pharaoh in Egypt didn't know that the astrological ages were chosen. So the old forces who represent the past age always lock on and hold on and don't want to allow the new forces to initiate and pioneer in the new age because they don't even know that the ages are changing. Right. Which is a problem with ignorance and unconsciousness. But of course, all Jesus' disciples were Jewish. Mary Magdalene was Jewish. His extended followers were Jewish, and they went out and then passed on the teachings of the Christ, of peace, love, forgiveness, understanding, all the rest of it, which had nothing to do with Christianity, because Christianity was only formed about 430 years after crucifixion in Constantinople. Yeah. And it was more a political thing, because all these people were around, they weren't Christians. They were people who followed, quote unquote, the teaching of Jesus as best as they could interpret them. And they didn't interpret them very well. And the church, the politicians in Constantinople, Emperor Constantine, wanted to formulate this so that they could control it. They wanted to control what was happening, and eventually you had the formulation of so-called Christianity, Catholic Christianity, etc. And we know what's happened the last 2,000 years. Sadly, it hasn't been a very peaceful, loving, and forgiving 2,000 years.
And I mean, Errol, just to interject there, it hasn't been very feminine, to be honest with you. It's been completely patriarchal and...
Yeah. I mean, because unfortunately, men still were in command, politically, economically, religiously, they still are. And so the masculine energy was still coming through. Although what you did have was you did have the nuns who were in a sort of, because that's a Pisces boat. The opposite side of Pisces is Virgo. So, and Virgo's got very much to do with, like purity and nuns and monks, etc. So there was like a feminine aspect to it, but it was more like the nun aspect to it.
And I'm thinking also the Renaissance, that was pretty feminine.
Yes, the Renaissance was part of that. Of course, these are like positive things that came out of the Pisces age. But still, of course, Jesus, as initiate, knew that the ages were changing. And so he was initiating the process consciously, moving from Aries to Pisces.
Yeah.
But the Pharisees and the people in general didn't know that there was astrological ages, Although the three kings that visited Mary when Jesus was born, the Chaldean, Babylonian, and Egyptian kings, were actually astrologers. All of them were astrologers. This is a well-known fact. And basically what they came to do was not just to present gifts to Mary for the birth of the avatar of Pisces, Jesus, but they actually told Mary many, many things, which she then passed on to Jesus, because they had astrological knowledge. So then you get the 2,000 years, and it unfolds with both positive and negatives, obviously, the light and shadow. And now we come to the next 2,000 years, where we are once again in the transition cycle between the age of Pisces, which we can not know. It was an age associated with Christianity and also with Islam, obviously, which also what came through that age. But of course, it's not just Christianity and Islam; it's many other things. But now we come to the swap over of Pisces to Aquarius.
Yeah.
And once again, of course, the Christians are focused on their Christian understanding from the age of Pisces, and not with their Aquarius understanding, because they don't understand that the ages are changing again. Even though the Christ said, when his disciples said to him, "When will you return?" He said, if you go into the city, you'll see a man carrying a water pitcher. And basically what he was saying, that is when I will return, when the age of the water pitcher, which is a symbol of Aquarius, starts, which is of course right now. So there's like the sense that that for the Christians that Jesus is going to return, and for the Muslims that they call it the Imam Mahdi, and the Hindus call him the Kalki Avatar, the Buddhists call him the Buddha Maitreya. So all the religions are kind of saying there's going to be some happening, some appearance happening now, which is connected to the age of Aquarius, although they don't understand that. They just think it's like just, an ongoing prophecy without an understanding of swapping over of ages. So the transition cycle between, when you had the thing of Moses and the Hebrews in the desert for 40 years, basically what that was a transition cycle. The focus transition cycle between Taurus and Aries. And that transition cycle is always very difficult, because the old forces are fighting to maintain their power and control.
Okay, I see that, John.
And today you have what's called the modern pharaohs, of course. We haven't got pharaohs or kings, but basically got the 1% or the 5% of people who control the world politically and economically, and religiously, and don't want to let go of their power, which is part of the Pisces age. And then you got the other force of people, the men and women of goodwill, who are consciously or unconsciously the pioneers of the age of Aquarius. And so the transition cycle is always difficult, because it's a huge battle between the forces of light and darkness. Not just outside, but inside, because everyone's going through that similar battle. Do they hold to the past? Do they go back to the past for so-called security and stability? Or do they go into the future, which is where they should be going, which is seemingly less secure and stable, because you don't know what's happening? Whereas the past, you can know what's happening, because the past, you know what's happened in the past. But of course, there's no real security and stability in going back to the past, because it's dying. That age is dying.
We've moved on. We've evolved from there. We're evolving.
Yeah, but many people, of course, don't know about that. They don't know that the astrological ages are swapping. They don't know the difference between Pisces and Aquarius. So they're in the middle zone, where they see that an old world is collapsing. They see the pandemic. They see the collapse of the old economic system. They see the corruption in politics. They see the abuse by various leaders around the world, in America, in Britain, in Brazil, in South Africa, in Egypt, in Israel, all over. And they see the corruption. They know it's wrong. They know that's not the way democracy should function. They know that there's huge inequality between the rich and the super rich, and not just the poor, but the middle classes. And they have a sense that something's badly wrong, very wrong, and had to change, but very few people know what to do to change things and why things are like that. So then you have the transition cycle between 1975 and 2025, which is a 50-year transition cycle between Pisces and Aquarius, which is occurring, and I've got 5 years to go. So 2021 to the end of 2025. And the closer we get there, the more intense and the more focused and the more critical and the more difficult and complex the transition cycle becomes, because the old world starts dying much more quickly and a new world starts to kind of emerge in a way which people can sense or see if they're looking or they're intuiting or they're searching to try to understand what's happening. But the structures and forms of the new age of Aquarius have not been formed yet, whereas the structures and forms of the Piscean age, the churches, the synagogues, the mosques, the temples are there. So it's easy to people to retreat back to the old religion, because if you're a Jew, you go to synagogue. If you're a Christian, you go to the church. You've got a minister or a rabbi or whatever. So you've got some sort of security which you can go to. Whereas with Aquarius, you haven't, except with Findorn, of course, and as an example, where we lived for 18 years, which is already since 1962 been Aquarian age center, which is that people live there, they live in houses, they got their cars, they got their businesses, they grow their own food, they got their windmills. So you have got a number of light centers around the world who are representing Aquarius, and when people go, then millions of people have been to these places, they get an understanding of the difference between what it's like to live in the age of Aquarius as it is to live in the age of Pisces. Yeah? But for instance, in Findorn and other places like that around the world, people are all ages, all races, all cultures, all nationalities, and there's not even a talk about division. There's not a talk about, oh, you Jewish, you Christian,
right,
you Muslim, you black, you white. People don't even talk about that. It's not even significant. It's like you're a human being. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. We all have our gifts, obviously. We all have our idiosyncrasies, and perhaps we also all have our shadows. But we're all human beings, and we come together to try and work together, cooperate and co-create a new type of society, a new type of man, a new type of woman, new type of marriages, new type of family, new type of diet, new type of rituals, a new type of education, a new type of psychology, etc., etc. And we're creating this new world which has a completely different basis and foundation to the old world, which was full of separation racially, religiously, nationally, which is still going on today, we can see. Unfortunately, even with Joe Biden in America, what he's doing is at the age of 77, 78, of course, he represents the establishment. He's playing the same old game as before. It's like instead of working with Russia and working with China to try and get a new type of world system where the nations cooperate and co-create together for the greater good, he's still he's still seeing that Russia and China are enemies of America, and Iran is an enemy of America, and creating this division, which is not very much got to do with Pisces, not with Aquarius. So one can only hope that when Joe Biden goes, which I don't think he'll last for 4 years, he's already losing his energy, that Kamala will come in as president, and she's younger, she's much more inclusive, she's got Asian roots, she's got Jamaican roots, and she might be someone who initiates a new type of political cooperation between all the different nations, hopefully, because you need young people. We haven't got good leaders at the moment. I mean, almost all our leaders are archetypically Pisces age leaders. They're not Aquarius age leaders. You know, I mean, Nelson Mandela and Bishop Tutu, people like that, were Aquarius age leaders. Mikhail Gorbachev from Russia was an Aquarius age leader. Maybe even Bill Clinton in his good days was a Aquarius age leader before he also turned the other way.
The thing is as you've just said, I mean, it's a transition. So the old's moving out and the new's coming in, and I think the point you made is that we don't have the symbols of Aquarius. You know, we still got these old symbols of Piscean age and the constant reminders of it all. So if I'm understanding you, we are the ones that are building this. We're building the pioneers, what you speak about, the higher conscious people that are understanding this all. We are busy building. And I think this is the one thing we mustn't lose sight of, all of us, and lose hope and despair over. We've got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, there's tens of millions of people who are pioneers of Aquarius, either consciously or unconsciously, around the world. They're working in politics, economics, business, the arts, the sciences, spirituality, ecology, etc., etc., etc. You know, a good number of them, millions of them, are conscious of what's happening. Others are unconscious. But almost every man or woman who is a man or woman of goodwill is working for the greater good of humanity and the planet is invariably part of the age of Aquarius rather than the age of Pisces. But what we haven't got is our living system. And basically the living system in the age of Aquarius will be community. People will live in communities. And within the community, they will then create the new type of lifestyle that is also actually community based, in which the community will be composed of, like Dawn, etc., of people of all ages, people of all races, people of all nationalities, people of all cultures, who come together to work together to create a new world, and are not interested if someone is black or someone is white or someone is old or someone is young or someone is is following Buddhism or someone is following yoga or someone is following this. They're just working together as best as possible to create a new type of society. And that's a massive change, because it's actually, when you think about the history of our planet, of humanity, you can't think back to the last time that happened, and that was not inclusive globally, was in the ancient Egyptian times, which was when the Egyptian civilization had a very high evolved civilization, white civilization, initiate civilization with the great thing and the Sphinx, etc. But then it was still only Egypt. It wasn't global.
Yeah, I see.
It was Egyptians. Now today, it's totally different. If you had a similar society, there wouldn't just be Egyptians, or there wouldn't just be Mayans or Incas. There would be all the different members of the human race, which has never ever happened before in human history. That we have globalization in the best sense of the word.
True.
So the thing is community. For people to start forming small to medium-sized communities and living together in a particular locality and growing their own organic food and meditating together, sharing together, and building new ecological homes and creating a complete new society that is an archetype of Aquarius. And that's going to happen. The only question is when it's going to happen. You know, I think that many people, I've been reading in the paper that a lot of people are selling their homes in the cities, in this country and other countries, and moving to the country. They're getting out of their homes. They're buying places in the countryside. They're growing their own vegetables. They're putting up solar panels. They're beginning to create the basis, the foundation for the way people will eventually all live in the age of Aquarius. But of course, that's not happening, shall we say, as fast enough as hopefully it should happen, because people are still stuck in the old economic system, and people are still stuck in being in the cities, being in towns, and all the rest of it. which is unfortunate what's happened at the moment. But it's changing. But the thing is that during the transition cycle, in the time of the swap from Taurus to Aries, you get the thing with Moses, that the plagues come, and then all the kind of catastrophes come, and you read about it in those days, as if somehow, and of course the way the Jews interpreted it was incorrect, is that God is very angry with the Egyptians, and so God starts striking the Egyptians and sending plagues and horrible things to knock them off, because he loves the Hebrews and he doesn't like the Egyptians, which of course is total nonsense, since God, the divine being that encompasses everything, makes no judgments upon, I don't like these people and I like these people. Well, this is completely, totally brainwashing and dangerous brainwashing, which is where you get the Jews thinking they're the chosen people, which they're not. They're not the chosen people. That's just nonsense and just a silly and ignorant stuff, and creates arrogance and creates separation and exclusivity, which is like a form of cancer. Because if you see an organ in the body that decides it's separate, it's exclusive, it's chosen, it doesn't need to work in cooperation with the rest of the organs, that organ gets cancer. And it starts to die and self-destruct, because all parts of the body have to work together in cooperation.
That's right. If
you're going to have a healthy system. Because every single person who works with nutrition or works with holistic understanding of how the body functions, etc., knows that. So that's the same with humanity. Every single part of humanity is a part of the larger body and have to work together and share their unique aspect of the part, but in cooperation with all the other parts. So it wasn't that the plagues, etc., that were experienced in those days were impacting upon the Egyptians, and somehow they bypassed the Hebrews. They didn't. What happened was that when the ages change and you go through the transition cycle and the old system starts to collapse, the repercussion of the old system collapsing is that the karma, the negative karma that's been created over that 2,000-year cycle of the old system now has to be worked out. And the way it's worked out is that a whole lot of crises and disasters and catastrophes begin to occur, which is the karma being worked out at a human level and an earth level. So today, the same thing, exact same thing is happening. The pandemic, all the repercussions of the pandemic. Now we have 49 volcanoes around the world,
true.
All erupting at the same time. We have earthquakes occurring everywhere. The number of catastrophic floods that are occurring all over the world is just unbelievable. I mean, if people knew what was happening, if they could, you go on YouTube and just check into that, you won't believe how many countries are experiencing catastrophic floods. Spain, France, Brazil, Ecuador, Colombia, America, everywhere, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Australia, as you've been seeing now, New South Wales has the worst flood in 100 years.
Terrible. So Errol, what you're saying is this is the heaviness that some of us are experiencing, and people coming into my practice and speaking to Dr. Reggie and Sister Dipty, they're coming in with heaviness. And I'm actually going to just bring them in as well, because they're also here. So we've got Dr. Reggie and Sister Dipty with us. Welcome everyone. We are seeing the heaviness is for sure. I can feel it personally too, and I'm doing my work, and I'm trying to lighten my load all the time and surrender. And I think this is the big thing, is to surrender and to live authentically and to live your true self and your true purpose, and get away from the horrible deception and and illusions and things that are kind of like, as you say, cancerous. They're cancerous.
Yeah, because it's like the earth is a living entity. Everyone should know that it's a living entity. It's not just a physical body. It's a living entity. It's actually called the spirit of the earth, which is actually an entity, a feminine entity, which actually is the controlling agency of the earth and all the elements, etc. and it has been abused. This woman, this great spirit, with a feminine polarization to it, has been unbelievably abused, raped. I mean, literally, she has been raped time and time again by our more, shall we say, masculine-based abusive society. The mineral kingdom's been raped. The vegetable kingdom's been raped. The animal kingdom's been raped. The human kingdom's been raped. Women have been raped. And she's had enough. That's it. She's basically exploding.
Yeah, that's. I'm just thinking for time. I want to. I think all the points you've made are valid, and it's just so interesting. It always is so interesting to hear, everything you have to share with us. And I don't know, Dipty, Errol, I just want to let Dipty come on air, and she's been listening in as well. And Dipty, from your point of view, this heaviness, this transition, what would you like to add here?
Hello, Jane, and hello to everybody. It's a very interesting aspect when we look at about this energy of heaviness. One of the things is when I've connected with physical change or what we may call change on this dimension of things, then it can create a deep sense of heaviness, because people are not ready for the kind of change, and that energy brings fear, brings worry, brings restlessness, brings tiredness, because what level of change they are looking at is to a level still seen from the linear eye. Correct. I find personally that in order to respond to this kind of energy, there's a closed circuit in this physical dimension, but the only way that you can release yourself from that and get a clearer perspective, a lighter perspective, a true perspective, is to raise your consciousness above this. And I think this is where humanity has more and more needed to go to. And therefore, evenings like today are so important, because it's not about shifting things physically or on physical consciousness, but rather to raise consciousness to see that my journey is much more bigger than the physical. The physical is one aspect of my journey, but I am a being that is so amazingly filled with the capacity to respond to life a lot more deeper and richer. And so I think, even I find when I have to go and visit places that really have a heavy energy, we have to learn to change frequency there. So where there's peacelessness and where there's worry and there's fear, we have to raise that frequency to peace. And we have to raise that frequency to love. And sometimes people may say, but that's like too soft because the world needs some real help. But actually, I've seen the greatest healing and the deepest changes happen when people are truly at peace with themselves. There's so many people today that are extremely anxious, and they're very anxious about the change because they don't see something bigger than the obvious. And so in my work and in the things that I have the opportunity to be part of, is really to invite individuals to say, there's a bigger picture. Life is not just what you see around you. Life is a lot more powerful, a lot more fuller and richer than the obvious. And I think it's a very practical way for me when we talk about raising people away from heaviness, is you can't do it just in one dimension. There is possibility. And when people touch that peace, it's like they found their rope to hope. But you have to provide them to the pathway to have that experience. Because all of us are naturally and innately peaceful and powerful. But it's like this diamond that has been covered by mud. So I don't see my capacity and beauty. But once I taste it, I wake up. So we have to wake individuals up for that experience.
I'm absolutely sharing that with you, and we also, it's not. I don't believe it's about huge, big stadiums and huge. I believe it's you just what you said. You take the essence and you shift one person or maybe a group of 3 or 4, and they will then shift in turn probably 100, and they will shift 100 people, so that it's. It's going to happen organically. It's not about big stage appearances. And we're going to talk to Reggie a little bit later, also because the pain threshold and that people are going through, aside from the heaviness, we've got to also have a look at the new paradigm there in terms of as you say, dealing with the pain, dealing with the physical, but bringing in all these other dimensions. And Reggie's got a great story he's going to share with us in a moment. So Errol, piecing it all together, and we've got another month or 2 or 3 ahead of us. Maybe summarize what Dipty's shared with us and where you think.
Well, first of all, remember on Sunday, which of course is your 1 year celebration of turning points, is the full sun moon of Aries.
Yes.
So it's in the evening for South African time. I think it's around 6:30 or something p.m. Greenwich Mean Time. So on the Aries full moon, what happens is that the ideas, the inspirations, the imprints for what will be the new astrological year. That's the year ahead, obviously. Come into people's consciousness. So it's only from the Aries full moon, sun moon cycle, which corresponds to the festival of resurrection in Christianity, and of course to Passover with Jews, which is basically like Passover, moving from the old to the new, resurrection, moving from death to rebirth. From imprisonment to freedom,
right?
Moving from the old paradigm to the new paradigm, and all new paradigms, as essence, have new ideas, new inspirations, new imprints, which are related to the present and the future, not to the past. And everyone receives the corresponding ideas or inspirations or imprints that obviously are appropriate for them, because everyone has different work to do, different purpose, different creativity. Over the Aries full moon cycle, which is the 28th on Sunday, and then moving through next week, basically unfolds in about 3 or 4 days, and unfolds to about Wednesday or Thursday next week. So everyone would be very receptive, because the soul, the higher self, passes down these imprints, these inspirations, these ideas into the consciousness of people, to let them know, well, this is what you need to be doing to be a pioneer and a catalyst for obviously the new astrological year, but in this case, because of the transition cycle for the age of Aquarius too. And people have to be, the more conscious you are of that, whether it's coming through intuition or coming through dreams or coming through guidance in meditation or coming through synchronicity, which comes through all those type of factors, that's what people have to do. They've been given the guidance, the imprint of what you're supposed to do. An individual, as a couple, as a group, as a network, whatever it might be. But also national leaders and governments also receive imprints for what they need to do in terms of the new. So people should be very aware of that, because most people, of course, are not aware that that's when the imprints.
So it's quite an important time, isn't it? It's a very important time these next few days. Am I right?
No, very important.
Critical.
Because, as I said, it's like everything starts with an idea. There's a thing which says there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Everything starts with an idea. There's not one thing you can do without an idea. So when you start a turning point, you got the idea to start turning point. And then you started doing it, and eventually the turning point became an expression, but it was from the idea, right?
Yes.
So everything starts with an idea, and the ideas that are the start of all creative expression for every individual or couple or group or whatever, come through on the Aries cycle, especially the Aries full sun moon cycle, which is, as I say, on the evening of Sunday, and then unfold. They sort of wave out and unfold themselves over the next 3 or 4 or 5 days. And people who are conscious get them much more easy because they're aware of those imprints coming through. So people who are unconscious also get them, but they don't necessarily realize what's happening.
Yeah, so you're saying,
that's why it's very important for people to be aware of that.
We must
but
get
the other thing
our...
I just wanted to
yes.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to share about it is this. We've talked about the fact that one of the most important things during this time is to keep alignment with your soul, to keep alignment
just about
with
to ask you, I was just about to say that. So that's synchronous.
That's absolutely vital for people to do because you have to keep alignment with your higher self, your soul, which of course is not involved with this world at all and is transpersonal and is all powerful and is omniscient and omnipresent. In Hinduism, it's called Satchitananda. The 3 qualities of the soul, because the soul is trying to guide and protect one. The other side of the equation there, and people must be aware of it, everyone is going through a difficult time, physically, emotionally, mentally, psychologically, because people are being hit by the impacts of the COVID, of lockdowns, of wearing masks, of the economy collapsing. I mean, we know a lot of people whose businesses have collapsed, and they're going through a very, very difficult time because of it. There's all kinds of pressures. And then you got, the natural disasters which are occurring, which are going to affect people, or are affecting people, of course, all around the planet. Thank God in South Africa, we're relatively safe. We don't have earthquakes or volcanic eruptions. We have very few floods, etc. It's a very safe place, South Africa. But around the world, people are suffering. And people are suffering at the invisible level, the emotional level, the mental level. No one can get away from that. You can meditate as much as you want to. You can align as much as you want to. You can get up to your higher vibration as much as you want to. Your lower bodies are going to be affected. And one of the things when your lower bodies get affected and you start going through, emotional trauma or mental trauma or physical trauma or ailments, whatever it might be, which everyone will be affected by because of that level or imperfect, is that then comes the tension and the stress and the testing. That will the person now retreat backwards because of those pressures and difficulties and pain, whatever it might be, or will they stand and keep moving forward? People must learn, no matter what they're going through, no matter how difficult it is, no matter how painful it is, the only way that's going to be resolved or healed is by moving forward, not by moving backwards.
This is so true, and I mean this is what we're going to get into, Errol, specifically, because I mean Dipty's talked about also, the picture's much bigger. It's not a one-dimensional physical plane at all. And you've talked many times as well about, the ego versus trusting your soul, and I think this trusting is really what keeps us also riding the crest of the wave, and the more we can get to a knowing space, the easier it is, and the more we do open into, as you say, the soul space, the less the pain, Dr. Reggie and Dipty Ben and myself are going to be experiencing. And the more we are able to raise other people's consciousness, raise our own, raise other people's, raise our own, these are vital tools. And I just really want to thank you, because you've kind of also, as you always do, demystified the actual hands-on ground, real-time experiences that we're going through, which is, I think, invaluable. And I think that's also why I love astrology, because we do find knowledge there which we can all really benefit from. And you've really set the scene for the next week, and I do want to thank you and Imogen so much.
Great. People should basically keep a book and pen by their bedside when they go to sleep during the day, because when imprints come through or dreams come through, of course, people have to interpret that.
Yeah.
And they come through so quickly sometimes, the imprint, that you can tend to forget about it. The thing, you get a great idea, you say, I had this great idea. I got this great idea, but I've forgotten what it was.
And I think, Dipty also talks a lot about, and me too, about the keeping this journal and what you're leaving behind and what you're taking with you. And I think that's a great teaching of hers as well, because I practice that, and I thank Dipty for that as well, is that because people need to sort out the clutter. That's too heavy, it's not serving me anymore, it's not coming with me, I can surrender to that. And it does require a logical brain, because otherwise that emotion can actually circle for, as you say, another 300-400 years if we're not on top of it.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, the Romans carried on in the Piscean age. The Romans carried on for further 400 years before their civilization came to a close, because they held on to the old Aries age.
All right.
And because the Piscean disciples at that stage were very kind of lackadaisical, they were very passive, they didn't have much knowledge and understanding, they weren't very dynamic, and so basically the more powerful force overruled them. But Aquarius disciples are different. Aquarius disciples are quite strong people, and many of them are women. And strong women. I mean, if you look at all the revolutions taking place around the world now, in Belarus, in Burma, etc., it's the women leading the revolutions.
Yeah.
Young women, the younger generations of women, they're very strong. They're not passive, and they're not violent either. They're peaceful but dynamic and strong.
That's true. So I think, Errol, we're going to run out of time if we carry on too much. So what I think is if you've shared an enormous amount with us, and you've probably got notes on the archetypal Aquarius lifestyle, the living locally but being part of the global space, and I think that you've shared a lot on that as well. So I want to take the essence of what you've shared, and Dipty's also given a bit of an introduction there, and call Dr. Reggie in, because he's seeing things, and he's very sensitive to the new paradigm, and he's just gone. Wiped himself out. Okay, there he's back. And he's very sensitive to operating real time and interdimensionally, and also emotionally, etherically, from the soul level, the astral level, and spiritually. So I wanted to bring Dr. Reggie in.
Good.
If he's here. He is here.
Yeah. Yes, Jane. Thank you very much. I was listening very attentively to the discussion. And definitely, the reset button has been placed. And I think it's critical that to accept the new, and to realize that the principle of resonance of people like ourselves who are on this panel today, and the many other people that are attendees, to know that we coalesce this energy together to make the change collectively. And there's nothing better than a collective change than a singular change, right? And in terms of science, it says that if spiritual people and people with right energy work in geometric progression, right? So for every 10 people, there's 100, there's multiplied by 10, there's 10 units of change. So it's not an arithmetic progression 1 + 1, right? So, and that's a that the most important thing what Errol said today was the omnipresence. It is the present time that's going to make the difference in the world. And the only thing that's subject to change at this time is constant. This second is gone. We've realized that we're in a dynamic state, continuous and consistently. And as Jane, that, and Dipty knows that, and Errol, that we have to constantly innovate ourselves and to be in the frontiers of change. Right? Otherwise, we'll be running on the spot. When you run on the spot, you run backwards, and that's the reason why the old new doesn't work. I mean, running on the spot also disappears. Right?
That's true.
Yeah, right. So I think, Jane, there's a lot of need for dialogue and engagement, and to realize that the most important people in the world is you and I. Each one is an important person to him or within himself, right? And the most important, you have the capacity to change. The science tells us that if you have a fracture of your hand within yourself, you heal yourself within, not outside. So you have the capacity to regenerate your cell and your tissue and your tissues around you. So you must realize that each one is a powerful entity that's existing here. Thank you, Jane.
No, that's absolutely. And you know, I think also you're in a space also where there's lots of toothache. And I mean, toothache in the mouth is often the beginning of, before even the alimentary tract diseases. And we're going to be talking about the mouth microbiome and the gut microbiome and the brain microbiome in following events. But Dr. Reddy, are you finding also that you're not so much a medical dentist? You're becoming almost using your intuitive powers and consultation when people are coming in, and sort of meeting them on a physical, yes, but also astral soul level.
Yes, and actually, you know, Jane, we've had some fascinating experiences over the last few weeks, and people have come to me and said, you know what, I've got arthritis, I've got a pain, and I'm not sure where's it coming from. I've got cancer, whatever it may be, and even some of my colleagues that I've sent to you, and it's purely on intuition. And I say to them, always, you're the most important person in the world. I said, what do you want of yourself? I said, your health is your wealth, right? If you don't get yourself healthy, you cannot function in this world, right? You need your mind, your body, and your soul integrated together. And when I say to them, listen here, I have a colleague of mine here, I think you should see her. And when they go to you, Jane, and it happens, as you know, that, then they realize, oh my God, thank God that I've been exposed to true healing from a quantum level, right? Beyond the physical, right? And this comes from your intuition. Intuition is not blind. Intuition is definite energy. So when somebody comes to me to help, so I would go into silence and says that, which practitioner should you contact?
Exactly. I think we lost Dr. Reddy there a little bit.
Physical healing, what we know, like what the general allopathic doctors do, but there's a higher, which is most. Jane, are you okay, Jane?
Yeah, we keep losing you. Sorry, Dr. Reddy.
Oh, okay, you can hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying the two parts of healing. One is the physical healing, and the other one is the astral. So when you're in the quantum healing space, you relate to the astral plane. And the astral plane is the higher force of healing than the normal physical allopathic.
I'm sure he'll come back now. So Dr. Reddy, we lost you a little bit there, and I know also you were saying this and saying to me also in the beginning is that healing in relation to intuition and having faith. That's sending a message. It's very powerful. Like you're just saying, you're reassessing and you're saying, right, what do I need to do? Who do I need to call in here? Who's part of the team? And sending them with conviction, basically, knowing and trusting yourself where they go, to where they go. And similarly with me, when there's big teeth problems, I'm trusting and I know with conviction that it's at the right place. And many instances now, and I mean, Errol does the natal chart readings as well, and Dipty's doing huge amounts of counseling. It's just a catalyst, and I think this is also what Dipty was talking about a little bit earlier, is physician heal thyself. We have to do it, and anyone who comes in to see me, I'm very outspoken about it. Look, I'm going to put a lot of things in front of you. We're going to raise awareness. We're going to raise consciousness about a lot of things, but at the end of the day, you take this home and you go into your quiet space and you start internalizing all of this, because it even happened today. A lady came and she'd been all over, and all that had happened was that it had confused her, because the consciousness, the logical space of us confuses us. There's no answers there. You can go left, right, half left, northwest, southwest, or whatever. But when you tap into the subconscious, which is the quantum healing on the super consciousness, that's where the answers are. The universal answers are in there. And Dipty is her space, about getting quiet, and Errol too, and meditating and finding your own answers. Next week, when we have the full sun Aries happening at the same time as the Aquarius astrological, it's about us sitting down and going inside. There's answers are in here. The soul is in here. The whole of the universe is inside us, and then sifting out what you think your reality is, because that reality 9 times out of 10 is an illusion, and it's fake as well. It's based on interpretation. It's based on what you were told when you were a child. It's based on epigenetics and ancestral hereditary stuff that we've just believed on an ongoing basis without questioning. And Aquarius, we're into objectivity. What you measure is real, and speed, and the truth. And I think I said authenticity. So like you were saying to me, you sent 2 people recently. The universe made the space. They came in. We sorted them out, some of them in the nick of time as well. And so, I hope I'm not taking what you wanted to say, but it's got so much to do with pain. If we actually listen to the message behind the pain, we'll get our answers too. And what, because the pain is a message. What do you say, Dr. Reddy?
Yes, Jane, that is certainly, the pain is often an indicator to know that there is a need for a high intervention, right? And it's a profound message that delves into, it's almost like a messenger, right? But it's a principle of resonance. How do you resonate to create that space to heal? And so if they come to me to say that, I'm attuned to Jane or whoever the person is, I said, I create the resonating frequency. It's almost like you transcend time and space into the same wavelength. And that's how you collectively heal together, And we find in the dental space now, lots of people are coming to me, not just generally for so-called cracked teeth, which appears to be an overt thing, but underlying that there's a subtle effects of pain within. And that affects at a cell level. This is why with quantum healing, that this need for correct reset button of the microbiome, the immune system, and cell regeneration with cell oxygenation. There's a relationship there. And then there's a biophysics to understand that what happened at a cell level, because you have a K-LMM shell, you have electrons, which are 280 electrons. When the electrons jump out of the shell, you obviously become dysfunctional. You have pain, you have disease conditions, and this is how the relationship happens. So this is why quantum physics and quantum healing.
I think he's, you back?
Jane, I'm there, Jane?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah. So So I was saying that the space of the quantum physics and healing fills that space that normal allopathy medicine cannot fill.
And it's true, because you're giving the subconscious a voice, and that, as we've just said and alluded to, that's where the answers are. And we're not coming straight in, as Dipty said, it's more than the physical. We're not coming in with the straight physical. Yeah, we see the symptom, this is going to sort this out, but you're actually pain-free, but you're still ill. So it's wonderful to hear, because we even all practitioners need to be expanding their view. I think you said it earlier as well, and working holistically. What did they eat? If you have bread, you're going to have fear. Bread is just so full of toxins, plastic, and hybridized grain, and often, as I say, even parasites sitting inside it, that you're going to have fear. And so we can start pulling all of this together, because we're expanding our space rather than working in a reductionist manner as well. We're working holistically. So we're able to take people, into a higher consciousness space as we raise our own as well. And, get to a simplicity point. I think Errol talks a lot about that too, because from what Errol's talked about with the Aquarius is it is about simplifying everything. And if you think of Findhorn and what he's taught me about all of that as well, we've got to I think crush the illusion, because the illusion is that Piscean veneer materialism that we've all grown up with. And what I'm finding a lot, and I just want to bring this in here, and Dipty, I know you're going to talk about this too, but people are walking around with the highest emotion being delusion and even self-delusion. And I really have studied this, because what are we really saying here? We're saying that there's a realization that there has not been authenticity. There's been deception. And that can a kickback on many levels, where the self-delusion creeps in. And it's okay. We need to say to people, it's fine. Let your truth come through. Listen to your soul. Listen to the subconscious space, and then work towards your authentic, organic, original selves, and dispense with that illusion. We had to go through that for whatever reason. It's not a good or a bad. It's an is. But then expel this delusion, because the Dipty, and I'd also like to hear what you say about this too. And Errol, you're listening in, so chip in too. I find this very destructive, and I see it so many times on the quantum, and where we can rather get an interdimensional realignment, if you don't mind, and getting back to living our purpose. And being authentic about all of that. So, you know, that's my space. And to do that, I think, Dr. Reddy, what you're saying here, it is to get into the quantum, the right quantum spin. Because the right quantum spin, the body's alkaline, the electrons are in order, they're in alignment, they're vibrating really fast, the toxins have gone, the heaviness, the emotional side's been dispensed with, the spirituality, you live in your purpose. And what we talked about in the week was that we can then receive the cosmic microwave radiation that's coming through at intensities like never before, and the mRNA fragments that are evolving us can work synergistically with us and the earth and so on, and bringing that oxygen in and bringing the water in, and working integratedly with the earth, the plants, the animals, humanity, and the cosmos, and then working what we talked about with Professor Dubonnet, the minerals and the chemical reaction that needs to happen for these electrons to actually be released is so critical. So we're dealing with a massive dynamic situation that's interdimensional, and fortunately, we have got these devices. Fortunately, we've got our understanding of oxygen and the flaxseed oil and the ormus as a capacitor to help us do all this. And then we can look at biology. You know, instead of starting there, we need to come in rather electromagnetic beings, the earth, the water, the ground, the chemistry, the alchemy. Do you consume ormus? There's alchemy going on flat out. If you do something like shiatsu, there's alchemy happening. And with when we listen to Dipty's meditation, there's alchemy happening in front of us. What is alchemy? Lead to gold. We are transmuting the compost, the stuff we finished with, into gold, and that is raising consciousness. So you know, if we have a look also at Buddha, and we talked about Jesus Christ and Lasing, the I Ching guy, they weren't in a hurry. They were doing what they were doing. In our lay terms, they were chopping wood and carrying water, and we need to do that. And there shouldn't be a hurry, and there shouldn't be a need for stages and platforms. And this is an organic growth that we're speaking about. Authentic organic growth, which is the way I see this. And just as we're cycling to higher and higher and higher and higher realms, I think we're re-looking at things. I think we've already done it, quite frankly, and I've talked this before. We've already done it, and it's now a question of actually reliving it. And as Dipty would say, you know, spiritualizing the matter and concretizing it and manifesting, and then letting this organically grow Dipty, am I on the right track here? I always like to check in with you.
Yes, I really feel that at this time, as you were saying, the one word that I feel is needed is this energy of consistency. Along our journey, I think what happens in this world is people get extreme. So they go on one side and they do something, and then they suddenly move to the other side and they become extreme in another space. And that is the energy of this world. But I find that right now, in order to reach where we need to reach, one of the things we have to do, whether we're doing it physically, emotionally, or spiritually, we need to create a constant energy. And I think this is very, very necessary. I really find that the people that I know in my life who've been my mentors and have really had amazing moments. And, it's been very interesting in the Brahma Kumaris last year. We took leave from our Daddy Janki at the age of 104, and it was the same time. And this year, last week, we took leave from one of our other daddies, also at the age of almost 100. And these are very powerful souls that have taken leave at this time. And I'm so aware that what we are in right now, and as Errol also very clearly shared, we are in incredibly dynamic times, amazingly dynamic times. And I'm finding that it's like we just need to deepen certain practices and be so constant at it, at a very, very powerful level right now, and not to get detracted from it in any way, because this is the energy of the world right now. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of shifts, there's a lot of energies that are moving. But in that, the energy of truth is like a paved energy, but it needs to be a very constant energy.
Yeah.
And like as the whole aspect that came up of innovating the self in this period of time, and to really ask myself, what is it that needs to be innovated? It's very, very important. I can't just say, I'm going to innovate myself. But it's like you need to strategize and come to the essence of really what needs to be innovated. And it's like when I touch the seed of innovation, then the whole tree will change automatically. Let me not try and change every leaf, and let me not try and change every branch, but let me find the seed of innovation. And that seed of innovation comes by really taking that silent time. We need to be silent, and just not physically silent. I'm finding these days I'm awakened so early in the morning, earlier than I normally do. But it's a very, very real time. It's like I feel that life is guiding me somewhere. I'm sitting so deeply, silently, and I can feel that there's some change. This is like this alchemy moment of great change that is happening. But in this period of time, we need the silence and the innovation that is really needed for us at this time has to be at a very, very deep essence level. Let me not create the mixture of the Piscean age with the creation of the Aquarian age. In the Piscean age, there was transitional change, and we repaired things and we restored things and we made things up again. But the Aquarian age is a transformational change. It's very different from a transitional change. And I have to look at many things in my life in this journey of innovation. Am I just doing repair work? Am I just patching up things? am I still using, as we were talking earlier on, going backwards to try and find the way forward? And that's not going to work for us right now. It's not. It's just going to create more pain. It's going to create, and we see people struggling out there. Really, I mean, in the work that I do, just when 6:30, when you were talking to me, and there was a young lady with me, and she was really in pain, emotionally in real pain. And you know, people are resorting to going back in order to find the solutions. You know, I think Albert Einstein said very powerfully that the solutions, the problems, I'll get the words right, but he said it so beautiful. The solution to today's problems cannot happen with yesterday's thinking.
That's right.
Right? So it's like, really, I'm finding that we need to create a very powerful space for ourselves, and don't try and navigate your innovative moment, but provide space for that innovative moment to come, because sometimes we are still controlling that, and that controlling is still coming from the influence of my past belief systems.
Yeah.
So I found, like, for this last week in my morning meditation, I've just immersed myself in the energy of God's purity, because I feel that this energy of purity will bring a clarity to my being, because I know that this time, especially next week, is a very, very powerful time. From the 28th, next 4-5 days, people are going to be able, they will have to look inside, whether they know it consciously or unconsciously. So when Errol was talking, I was just smiling, because I thought, yes, my brother, we are on this journey. But it was just such a moment of thinking that whether people know this consciously or unconsciously, the drama of life is moving them to say something has to change. Whether it's pain, whether it's a decision, financial, whatever it is. But I can't stay. The reality is I can't stay where I was and where I think I can be comfortable in. Because this powerful energy that we are in is commanding change. And it's not just for me. It's like, I really feel that at this time, when we hear the call of time, we hear the call of pain and sorrow in the world, we have to rise above something in order to serve it. And like, as you were saying earlier on, Jane, we're reaching individually, one by one, but at a very powerful level too. You know, I just find it's with the power of our mind and the power of our attitude that we can offer a benevolence to the world, and never ever underestimate what capacity you have inside. You know, I'm really finding that at this period of time, this innovative moment of change, and we are not needing to do this on our own. That's the other thing to understand. It's just make yourself available. Put aside your fear and put aside your bread, as you were saying. It was like, yes, you know, put aside your fear, put aside your limited belief systems, and know that there's a higher energy that's also waiting to support you.
Yeah.
I find that in different places they have different belief systems, but whether you call it your ancestors or your masters or your higher angel, I feel that right now there's a very living, alive presence. I find it in my morning meditation. I'm thinking, wow, I'm in a space that is very alive, extremely alive. And it's not just for me, it's for humanity.
Mhm.
But I have to stay awake to catch it. I have to be open to pick it up.
Mm,
You know, it's a very, very beautiful time.
it
And
is.
so what the pain has done to the world is whether it's physically, like the other yesterday I was talking to somebody and they were in tremendous pain. And I know that they are in resistance. And I was trying to talk to them that it's not just your physical pain, and I can send you somewhere to get that help, but also break your resistance. And you can see people are resisting because
Yeah.
change is not an easy one. And the resistance is causing pain today. Amazingly intense pain in people.
Well,
Yeah.
we've got to always ease the flow. We've got to make sure that the electrons are flowing. And just to add on to what you're saying, and that you're detoxifying and you're exercising and you're getting in the sun and you're keeping the photonic flow of things happening and energy within you. Because the minute there's stagnation, there will be pain. And when we weren't, Errol said, Errol, you still listening? Yeah. I mean, you said to us, it's not about if you stay stagnate and Dr. Reggie also said, if you keep running on that spot, the spot will eventually disappear, in itself. And I mean, Errol, I think this is what you were saying to us too, is that we can't help it. The force is moving forward, and you're going to either get caught in the plague or you're going to be above the plague.
I mean, people's egos naturally. I mean, this is a natural thing. The ego wants comfort. Physical comfort, emotional comfort, mental comfort, etc. It's natural. So the ego is always trying to go back into the illusion of comfort. And at this time, there's no going back, because every single time people think that the so-called crisis is coming to an end, like they think the pandemic is coming to an end because we've now got vaccines, that 12,000 people in Israel have tested positive for COVID after having the shots of the Pfizer vaccine. The European countries have now banned the AstraZeneca vaccine because it's creating blood clots and people are dying from blood clots. So the vaccines are not working and are not going to work, and the virus will keep mutating. And already the next wave of the virus is hitting Germany and Czech Republic and Brazil and France, etc. And it'll probably hit hard the rest of the world from April onwards. So it's not going to stop. It's carrying on and ending the old world and the old consciousness and the old thought forms and the old way of perceiving things. And people cannot go back to comfort. So people have to learn to live constructively in discomfort.
And not in that illusion I was speaking about. That's just illusionary comfort. It's not a real comfort. Yeah. It's false.
Yes, it's all an illusion. I mean, you can go. I mean, I've had many rich clients and super rich clients over the years. They're not living in a peaceful, comfortable, secure place. They're full of psychological and emotional problems like everyone else. But they cover it up, of course, with all the material possessions, hoping that the material possessions will protect them from discomfort. But it doesn't, because you can't be protected from discomfort, because that's evolution.
Correct.
So people must get used to discomfort and see it and relate it in a creative, constructive way, and keep moving forward, and giving and sharing and serving and creating and creating a new life for themselves within the process of the discomfort. Not trying to get back to comfort, but to keep moving forward creatively, to keep serving one's fellow humanity, etc., without trying to get away from the discomfort. Because if you try and get away from the discomfort, you try and go back to comfort. And if you go back to comfort, you're going back into illusion, because it's over. That type of illusionary comfort is over. We are moving into an age of a new type of comfort, which is dynamic comfort, which is intelligent comfort, which is dynamic, loving comfort. which is right human relationships comfort, which is living simply and creatively in all the beauty comfort. But it's a higher dynamic of comfort. It's not the old comfort that people have associated comfort with before. And so people are going to experience more discomfort as the process of the change occurs. And then we just keep moving forward, keep moving forward,
keep going with the flow. And as Dipty says, you know, it's a transformational flow, as opposed to an orchestrated shift, which we've been used to. And I think this is what when that extreme pain hits people, they realize that maybe they're conscious or not conscious. They realize they've got to let go of that past. They've got to take that jump and get to the other side. And you know that, I mean, look, I mean, Errol, I mean, I don't think the amount of depression and anxiety has ever been as great. I'm telling you now, the blood pressures that I'm seeing now are off the charts. I've never seen such high blood pressures. And Dipty, you know, you're in this field too. And Dr. Reggie probably too. You've probably never seen such extreme pains. I mean, last Saturday morning, I was on the phone to Reggie because one of my clients is going through this massive detox and shift and rejuvenation, and he develops this massive abscess under his teeth and in the jaw and all the rest of it. So you know, what emotion was coming through there, because he's actually on all the stuff to sterilize his mouth, okay, but it just shows you that emotion is going to come through whether you like it or not. And I think we've actually got to catch these people in the net, which is what we're doing, and help and guide and shift. Peaceful.
Look, that's a very, very difficult time for people at the moment. You know, just trying to act as if somehow it's not extreme difficult and stressful for many people. And I think that's happening on the earth, like volcanic eruptions which are happening in the earth are also a manifestation of human eruption. The floods are human floods. The earthquakes are human earthquakes. So it's not just that the earth and the human situation is very much in tune, and that's why you're getting so many earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and floods, because humanity is now going through a huge eruption, a huge earthquake, a huge flooding, which is very painful, etc. And that's why people are going through so much trauma. But at the same time, people must understand that they got to keep moving forward despite the trauma, despite the difficulty, and just create a new life for themselves. And also, as I said before, one of the most important things about stabilizing during this time is that people must do the small things in their particular home, their particular garden, every day with the type of consciousness they would normally devote to the big things. Whether it's washing dishes or making your bed or ironing your clothes or cleaning your house, or planting your vegetables in your garden, or feeding your animals or watering your garden, those small things must become very big conscious things that anchor people into the earth, because that's what keeps people steady and stable every day. If people look at the small things and say, I don't like doing this, I don't like these small things, they're unimportant, people are going to be in big trouble, because with what's happening with the lockdowns, etc., you've got to do the small things, and you've got to do them with the right type of consciousness. Even when you hoover the floor, you're taught how to hoover consciously. When you make your bed, you're taught how to, not necessarily taught, but you're encouraged to make your bed consciously. Like if you're doing a beautiful painting, don't make your bed as if you're making a bed. You're doing a beautiful painting. That's the way you should make your bed. Or hoover or iron the clothes, or hoover the carpet. Make it a creative act that's just as important as doing the big things. That's the way you anchor yourself every day during this time. And that actually anchors a lot of trauma and stabilizes the person's life. Without that, I don't know how people can be stable during this time.
And as I was saying earlier, I'm just, reinforcing what you're saying. It's not about rushing anything. Buddha never rushed anything. I mean, Jesus Christ got up every day and did what he needed to do. It wasn't a rush, and it wasn't a big advert, and it wasn't public eye stuff. It was just getting on with what needed to happen in your own time. And I know the professor always, there's information pieces that come through, and everything will happen in time. I think we've got to get off that, like Dr. Reddy was saying, this three-dimensional time scale. We've got to move that out the way, because and Dipty was saying much bigger paradigms, and much more than this physical, and work with the universal time rather. That's what I'm saying, and the universal truth.
That's what the lockdowns are for. The lockdowns are not just happening because of the pandemic. The lockdowns are actually a very important divine event. They are forcing people to live much more slowly, to take it easy, to relax more, to communicate more, to share more, to do the small things in the right sort of way, to not get hung up on time. That's what the lockdowns are for, and more lockdowns are coming. In April, May, there's going to be another big lockdown, probably in South Africa too, and around the world. And people will scream and shout they don't want lockdown, because they don't realize the lockdowns are divine grace.
Yeah.
That's what gives us the opportunity to slow down a second, to take it easy, to do the small things, to talk to our partners, to talk to our children, etc. So the lockdowns will carry on, and they're the best things for humanity. I mean, if we had a 6-month lockdown, that would be the biggest divine grace possible. The whole world would change if we had 6-month lockdown. So all these people screaming around the world and revolting against the lockdown, what's the point of the lockdown? That's the lockdown. The lockdown is if you going into a cave in the Himalayan mountains to meditate and become enlightened. And people are saying, I don't want to become enlightened. I don't want to become illuminated. I don't want to be go slow. I want to go fast. I want to get cancer as soon as I can.
Get it done and done and dusted. Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we've got an opportunity to be in a dark room. You don't have to fly to Thailand, to Mantak-Chia and spend time in a dark room. We have the opportunity, and it is. And I have a really wonderful position in the sense, and I'm sure Dr. Reddy and Dipty and you as well, is that people come in this box, right? And they look in a certain way, and they're acting, and they're speaking, and they're in this box, right? And then we go through our various modalities, and we act as our catalysts and things, and we have consultations with them. And they come back a month later. I'm not joking. 2 people have come back, and I have not recognized them. They have shifted so much. They've come in a new box. They literally metamorphosized, left that old snake skin or whatever you want to call it, or caterpillar behind, and they've come into this butterfly space. And my one client said to me, Jane, I look back in 1 month. This is a breast cancer lady. I look back at what I was writing and how I was and how acid I was and how aggressive and angry I was. She said, I can't believe it. She said, I've gone and burnt that book. That journal. So also, Errol, just a seckie. I don't think we're going to take 400 years like they took to get into the Piscean age. I think this getting into the Aquarius is going to be quicker, because I've never seen such quick transformations.
No, it can't take 400 years, because basically with global warming and climate change, either the change occurs quite radically by the year 2030, or else the planet's gone. So no, it's impossible to take too long. But you got like 9 years to save the planet, and if you don't save it by that time, then basically it's kaput. So everything has to move very quickly. You can imagine the superhuman kingdom looking at humanity and looking at the Earth and knowing about the global warming, climate change situation, etc., and saying, we can't afford to let you carry on, because if you carry on like this, you're going to destroy the planet, you'll destroy the human race, you'll end this experiment. We can't afford for that to happen. So we are now instigating a series of what you think is catastrophe, but what is not catastrophe, in order to force you to change very quickly. Because believe me, the pain you're going through now will be 100 times worse if you don't change. Because already if you look at YouTube, there are weather conditions occurring around the planet, like in Australia now, etc., that have never occurred before, or only occurred hundreds of years before, which are catastrophic manifestations of climate change and global warming. And it has to stop, and if it won't stop unless we change our whole political system, our economic system, etc. So no, it's going to be very quick and very intense, and people just have to.
And I think we've got to get these toxins out of our bodies as soon as possible, because these toxins have consciousness, everybody. And you find the toxins in corn. There's blastomycosis. It's got its own consciousness, and it causes dementia and Alzheimer's. In the rye grain, there's ergo, which is a fungus, which is real and alive, and it's documented in France. So people went crazy when they ate the rye bread, because when they store it, it gets this fungus. Similarly, wheat, when it's stored, it gets also fungus and infected. And so we've got to also start deselecting those kind of foods. Peanuts, the same. They get an aflatoxin when they're stored. So we have to do everything now, I think, getting into the real-time space and real-time food, and not going into that storage space, and understanding that our consciousness is being affected by toxins and toxicity. And we therefore eat clean. We've got to eat clean. We've got to live clean. We've got to think clean.
Which is not easy, because you're growing your organic vegetables. Some people are growing organic vegetables. A few people have got slightly small farms, but the huge numbers of people have not got access to organic vegetables or organic fruit or whatever. I mean, South Africa exports most of the organic fruit that South African grows is exported to Britain and to the EU. I can get more South African organic fruit in the supermarkets in Britain than I can get from the supermarkets in South Africa.
And there's another important one, and Dr. Reddy, this is your area, and it's about sugar. There was a young guy that came today. He has 9 teaspoons of sugar a day in coffee. Dr. Reddy, are you there?
Yes, I'm there, Jane.
9 teaspoons of sugar that he's accounting for in terms of the sugar in his tea. Now, what about the sugar in his white bread, his white rice, his white potatoes, and the bread and stuff that he's eating? So and the cookies, and then he drinks Coke too. Now, that sugar slows the white blood cell down for half an hour. Right, it doesn't move. So therefore, what's happening to our immunity? There were 4 possible causes. 2 of them were low immunity, because of course he's got low immunity, and he's not, he's just not feeding himself. And I mean, sugar, it's literally white powder. I mean, it's children's drugs.
It's a killer.
And Dr. Reddy knows about Dr. Weston Price, Dr. Reddy, and his work on the dental arches when we brought in white sugar and white flour.
Yes, absolutely. All these little fine things that fix all your pH. You totally become acidic. When you're acidic condition, you become diseased, and it fixes sodium potassium pump heart rate, it fixes your lung compliance, and over your liver function, and what happens in your liver? It produces more triglycerides, and triglycerides to go somewhere, goes into the muscular tissues, affects your tongue and the density, and it affects your breathing and swallowing. It's a chain reaction.
Yeah, in fact, you spent a lot of time talking to us about this on the last turning point. So people who are listening in, if you go onto my YouTube, you will find the previous turning points, and where we've talked about all of this, and Dr. Reddy very clearly and concisely talks about the ramifications of this. But not only that, and I mean, you speak to any yogi person or shiatsu person, if the body's alkaline, it's bliss. You're in another state. Another place. If you eat a strawberry that has a Brix meter, refractometer meter of 12 reading, okay, versus a strawberry that's grown in commercially with pesticides, etc., with a Brix meter of 6, you're eating different things. So why don't we use the alchemy, use the powers that we have, use the knowledge that we have to raise our vibration, raise our consciousness, and in so doing help others. That's really what I'm saying. We must use what we know.
People have to grow their own organic vegetables. People have to open up small organic to medium range organic farms. I mean, it's not being done. I mean, you know perfectly well that black people in South Africa eat a massive amount of white sugar every day. I mean, they have like, 6, 7, 8, 10 cups of tea, each with 2 or 3 spoons or more of sugar. It's killing them. But
it's everything. It's the genetically modified food. It's the plastic in the bread. It's the soya, which is genetically modified in the bread. I mean, we're the only country where there's 2 staple foods are genetically modified, but like 99% genetically modified. So there's a lot of education to do, and it's a question of getting the ball rolling in an organic and very authentic way, and in educating in this space. And I think what really led me into all of this, sugar has its own consciousness. I mean, it's disastrous. So let's educate the people on purity. Dipty was using that word, and I'm going to cross over to Dipty now, because also we don't want to go to bed, her to go to bed late. And I'm very aware of that, and so on. I mean, Dipty, let's just pick up on the purity space, and I think let's work into a closure, unless Dr. Reddy wants to say anything.
Well, one thing, Jane, I just want to allude to what Sister Dipty said early on about delusion.
And you want me to help you make your beds?
Okay, just a sec, Errol. Errol, I'm going to say cheers, hey?
Yeah, great, Jane, thanks.
All right, okay. Thank you, Errol. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very, very, very,
Thank
very,
you so
very
much, Errol.
Amazing.
Was
thanks,
very
Errol.
good. Yeah.
Just super. Ciao. Sorry,
Okay.
Reggie.
Sister Dipty said something very important early on about the world is in delusion, and people are in the state of delusion. And during this pandemic, and thinking that about living in this past, or trying to reset the button to go back to the past. I think that the world is going to be the same. It's never going to be the same. So this delusion leads to the thing called double standards. So basically, that you got one standard of reality and one's the false standard, right? And so when you have that kind of duality, it creates a danger to the soul, and almost creates an imbalance in you, right? So when it creates an imbalance in you, you react emotionally in a dysfunctional state. And when you're emotionally compromised, it unfortunately leads to a disease state, because your biochemistry is affected, your biophysical is affected, and your quantum space is affected. So that's what I wanted to say in relation to what Sister Dipty.
No, 100%, and to operate from neutrality at the end of the day is possibly also something to talk about next time.
Yes, and it's very critical. Thank you very much, Jane.
Yeah, no, thanks for that. I mean, golden wisdom. Thanks, Reggie. So I think let's talk. Move over and cross over to Dipty, who's actually with us in Johannesburg now. So we're very honored to have her grace and presence and her essence. Look, your essence is around the world. Your essence is everywhere, because if we're in the quantum space, our essence is everywhere, and our subconscious is everywhere anyway. But it's nice to have you closer. So Dipty, I mean, you really are a master at pulling everything together and ending off gorgeously. I'd like to hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jane. And I think we've covered so many powerful things today. And we talked about what you said very, very powerfully, Jane, that our consciousness is influenced by toxicity. And I was thinking that even at this time, it's so important that we clear that toxic energy on many, many levels. One is on the physical level, where we really create shift. And I know one of the conversations that came up was just the aspect that maybe not everyone can grow their own foods. But I do believe that you can firstly choose what you can eat, but also give your food a lot of love and a lot of peace. People eat today so mindlessly. They just buy something and they put it in their mouth. that food is not just the ingredients. That food, as we talked earlier on in a few sessions before, there's vibrations in that food. Imagine somebody who's been baking something and they are so worried about what's happening at their home, and they've prepared your so-called meal that you've got. You're not just eating those ingredients, you're eating all their worry. You're eating all the vibration. And so one of the practices that I find very, very important, sometimes we can't change everything, but we can certainly change our vibration towards everything. So certain things physically, I may not be able to maybe get the true, honest, organic things, because what is honestly organic is even questionable these days. You know, but always before I put anything in my mouth, I give it a lot of love. I know that you can change its vibration.
You can. It's alchemy.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, in many practices, for a while, when families used to eat together, they used to bless the food. It was like something they did. But today we live in such a fast generation that is not mindful about these things. So one is to really just understand that we are vibrating beings. I am a vibrating being. So everything that I am, I vibrate. So I have to come back to my real self and come back to the essence of who I am. And it's been very interesting. We've been talking about this energy of cleanliness and simplicity. And last year, when Dadi Janki passed on the 27th of March, I looked at her life and I said, what are the 3 most important lessons you've taught me? And that I will take that as a gift in my life. And you know, for the last year, it's going to be her anniversary tomorrow, actually. And for 1 year, there was like this internal mantra that I kept: truth, cleanliness, and simplicity. In Hindi, they rhyme: Satyata, Safaita, Saralta. It was like something that I embraced. And I said it was my way of saying thank you to her. And the more and more I took these energies, I realized how much more I had to detox. Because we have had so many belief systems that have not been true. Or even when we talk about cleanliness, there's such energies of cleanliness that we can talk about, and simplicity. And so I found that as I was working through that, I was like taking off layers and layers and layers. And just today, I was journaling and I was just saying to Dadi that tomorrow is your 1 year anniversary, and I want to give you a gift of my effort for the year. And just to really look at how to say gratitude to somebody who has brought you to a space. I've always believed the highest source is God, but there are beautiful people out there who can support us on our journey, and we can learn from them at a very, very powerful level. And so really, I feel this next period of time, as we reach the turning point, become the point within yourself. Go deep inside yourself into a space of stillness and calm. Go within yourself and find the peace that you truly are. Beneath all the surfaces and all the layers of your life, there's a part of you that's peaceful, that's loving, that's pure, that's powerful. Just continue to let go and release. Release all the energies that hold you in the past. The future is calling you. The future is awaiting you. The future is already present for you. So don't hold on to a fear. Don't hold on to your doubts. Don't hold on to your old pain, for life is waiting to meet you. Step inside your true self, for beyond all other energies, there's a you, a powerful you that's waiting to express. Connect to the highest source. Connect to the ever beautifully powerful source of peace and love and purity and power. Allow yourself to be nourished by this energy. Allow yourself to be enveloped so that your resonance become the same as the resonance of the highest source. Go within, be at peace with yourself, and create new beginnings. Because that new beginning is already there, because it's filled with your authentic self, your pure self, your true self. I am peace. I vibrate this peace through my body, through this atmosphere, to all my surroundings. I vibrate this energy into the world. When I am at peace, I create new beginnings. Thank you.
Thank you, Dipty. That's amazing. Always is amazing. It's always amazing to have yourself and Reggie and Errol, working together, intertwined, entangled in this consciousness. And I just hope everybody who's been listening that there've been catalyst opportunities for shift and as Dipty says, when we're in the peace, that's when the new beginnings are going to come. So let's work on surrendering and being our true selves and doing what we need to do day by day. And so we can maximize these turning point opportunities along the way, and being the makers and the transformers of the new space. So I want to thank everybody for honoring and coming through this evening and being part of this graceful space, and looking forward to more years and of wisdom, and we're all in this together. We're all surfing the same wave at the end of the day, and so let's just share what we can and take this to the highest level possible, and keep trusting the soul. All right, Dipty, thanks a million.
Thank you so much. It was a beautiful evening. I felt the frequency was very honest and sincere and benevolent. So thank you.
Thank you. And we look forward to next week, I think. I think it's going to be just an amazing couple of days ahead.
And don't look out, look in. That's what happens in the world.
Good reminder.
When something happens, we start looking out. But it's not about looking out, it's looking in, and the out will take care of itself.
Getting hold of that journal book, yeah. And Reggie, thanks for sharing so much of your, your insights into healing beyond the physical. That's been incredible, very, very valuable, because we've got to understand and listen to the physical manifestations of the illnesses.
Yeah, thank you, Jane, and thank you, Sister Dipty. Wonderful panel. Wonderful.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much, Dr. Reddy.
Okay, go well, everybody, and we'll meet soon. As soon as I get the tap on the shoulder, whatever, from Errol, hey, there's a conjunction or a what do they call it? Transaction or whatever in the astrological space. We will be back. So thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
All right.
Good night.
Bye.